Hello. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Heidi. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Global Topic Live. I'm Jim Kunkel.
And I'm Hiedi Brooks. And who do we have on today?
Well, Heidi, our guests are from the Carboline Tech Services Podcast. So let's go ahead and we'll bring on first Jack Walker. Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Hey, Jim and Heidi. How are you guys?
Great, Jack. Nice to see you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Glad to have you on. So also, too, let's bring on Paul Atzemis. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have you guys here. So what I wanted to really kind of cover is the aspect of episode 177. How do you guys do it? I mean, it's absolutely outstanding. 177. This is probably, you guys have to be history when it comes to longest running podcast in the protective coatings industry.
Bravo.
You know?
So we were the first. We were the original industrial coatings podcast that was out there. So yeah, you are right. We are the longest running one also, because I think most of the other ones, there's some newer ones that have started recently that are going strong. They seem to have good followers. They have good topics, good discussions. Some of the ones that came around shortly after us either fizzled out a little bit or have a really much more delayed cadence that they release episodes on. So yeah, nobody else is anywhere near our count right now.
Yeah, and you guys are like the postal, the post office, rain, shine, snow, sleet, you never stop. It's always every week there's a new episode on. And the thing that I'm amazed with is you're not repeating things over and over again. You're finding new, fresh topics to cover.
Yeah, that has been a major challenge throughout the whole thing. But at the same time, we kind of said it kind of comes into us, as I used to work for Paul in the tech service side of things. And, you kind of get a good pulse for what's going on in the industry as people are calling in, asking questions. So it usually gives us a good idea of like, oh, maybe we should brush up on that topic since there's a lot of calls.
Exactly.
And, one of the things that we are able to do, if you go to our website, if you go to carboline.com, you can look up and see the list of all the episodes that we've done. And quite honestly, that is probably our biggest prep when we're getting ready to pick our topic or to do our topic is What have we already talked about? What did we talk about when we did it? Jack and I just had a discussion the other day that he wanted to do a topic. And I'm like, no, I think we covered that. And I had to go back through and listen to the episode again. No, I have nothing new to offer on that topic. I think we're done. We closed it. That's it. And I made him go listen to it again. And considering he's the editor, he probably didn't. But yeah, that's the resource that we go to try to, even if we do a topic that we've already talked about, the goal is to bring something new to it.
Well, I'm sure you guys get a lot of questions after the podcast or during that kind of help you, gear towards what the listeners want to hear too, as well, right?
Yeah, and that's where that, at Tech Service with Carboline, we're directly attached to our customers. And you can call in, you can talk to us. And so a lot of times it might not even be a question about the podcast that they know when they call in, and so it's really just trying to, talk to our reps, talk to our customers, kind of feel what's going on and give kind of a synopsis. We never really try to go at the microscopic view of anything. You can get really convoluted, really boring, to be perfectly honest, if you get way down in the nitty gritty. So you need a lot more time. We try to do, 15-minute episodes, for sure. give or take. And if you really want to explain something thoroughly, think about going to these conferences with AMP and previously as SPC and NACE, you sit in for an hour on a topic. We don't have that luxury. There'd be a whole lot of wrecked cars out there on the interstate.
Well, and the other thing too, I've had the opportunity, obviously, from the beginning to listen. And Paul, you remember, our first real introduction, being at a conference, and I'm talking to Paul, and I see he's from Carboline, and I'm talking about this amazing podcast that Carboline is producing. It's absolutely amazing. And Paul's like, well, that's me. I'm part of that team. From the beginning, listening from the beginning to now, you guys have been super consistent with the messaging, the information. And then now everything that you have done is available, in archived on the Carboline website. And I've had occasion where, and Paul, you might remember the technical question that came over from Pakistan related to compatible coding systems on a pipeline. There was an episode that you guys had done that fit it perfectly, and I had provided that episode to say, give us a listen. And you might pick up some, valuable information. So you got the material you're putting out there is real relevant, but also too, it's very practical for people to apply in ordinary everyday lives or their businesses and things like that.
I'll piggyback on that and say your consistency, follow through, and execution is flawless. You guys, the consistency is so important online, especially when you're expecting people to tune in every week. So that consistency and execution, you guys have done very well on.
Thank you. That was always been one of our main thrusts. And I credit Jack primarily for keeping us true to, the idea of, especially when we were doing audio only, if your audio isn't good, if you're not clear and concise, people aren't going to listen. And he and I are both avid podcast listeners, so I know what I'm drawn to. I know what I like. So it didn't take a lot of convincing for him to point it out, but it made us realize, get a good microphone, have a good sound deadening in your studio, make all of these things. They seem trivial, but when all you have is somebody listening to your voice, I already don't like listening to my voice. I wouldn't want to have that be the only thing droning on in my ear for 15, 20 minutes.
Totally.
So having it be quality is really an important feature. And Jack's done a really good job of making sure that we always stay on point, good and clear, no background noises. He's done an excellent job over the, 3+ years that we've been doing it to make sure that we stay there.
Yeah. I remember
we should do this every day.
Yeah.
Like, talk good about Jack. Let's do this.
Yeah. Well, I remember the original, when I went into St. Louis, the original setup you guys had, I think you were doing lean-to cubicle walls and a $95 mixer.
Yeah.
And I think you took over one of the little technical rooms there to make it into a makeshift studio. I think if I remember correctly, I was episode 24 when I had come out to meet with you guys at the time. Can you imagine it? You're at 177 now. So, the industry has always said for the both of you, you have the face for podcasting.
Yep.
Now you've taken that, and in the last number of months, you've moved your podcast, not only for audio, but also to video. Talk about that transition as well.
So necessity is the mother of invention, right? So here we are, we're in COVID times, and it just so happened that we had a situation where we couldn't be in the same room to record the podcast. And, honestly, Jim, you're a little bit of inspiration. I was like, why can't we do what Jim does? He does a Zoom interview, and then he posts it as YouTube content. So we literally just did it to maximize what we were already doing. And just do the exact same recording. It gets a little bit different. The audio version gets a little bit more of that tender, loving care that you need when you're only listening to somebody's voice. But the YouTube version has been pretty successful and fun so far.
The YouTube version has allowed us to put a little more visual effect to it. So when we talk about a piece of equipment, and again, Jack does all of our editing. So we talk about a piece of equipment and he puts an image of that on the screen. Or, we're talking about tanks or wastewater treatment. He's able to add images to something. So it's no longer that you have to think of it as an abstract. And if you didn't know what it was, you don't have to go Google it on your own. He gives you something to think about of this is the part that we're talking about, or this is the system we're talking about. So it's really been it's allowed us to bring a new dimension to what it is we're presenting to people.
Yeah.
For
So,
sure.
You said I was an inspiration for you guys. And I'll be honest, you guys were an inspiration for me because, when I first started listening to the podcast, I was like, that's what I want to do. I love giving information to people and everybody who knows me. I don't shut up. I like to talk all the time. Sometimes I talk too much. So why not take it, put it into a different format? And I decided to go the YouTube route. Now, obviously I'm doing live streaming. You guys are doing YouTube. You're doing your podcast. Hopefully you guys will get into live streaming as well. But, I started looking at this and said, for example, you could tailor a live stream that could be put out as a podcast and put out obviously on a YouTube channel or on your website so that people could consume the content however they like. If they want to listen to it, if they want to watch it, or if they want to be there live and participate with that content. And so that's why I really like the different platforms and different formats that are available out there. Our industry, and when we look at the corrosion and coatings industry, we need more advocates out there. We need more people that are, let's say, the micro influencers and the influencers out there. You guys are influencers and you're really making a big impact. Could you talk a little bit about some of the feedback that you get from your fans and followers?
Jim, can I get you to re-say that while I record this segment? Because I need to play that for my kids who refuse to believe that this is somewhat part of my job. And for you to actually say that we're influencers,
I think that this is close to making out on LinkedIn, as you can get.
Right?
Yeah, don't even. I go ahead, please.
Professional love.
Well, after that, I got nothing. I mean, no. It's weird. The other day, the town hall, Carboline does a town hall. It's internal. It's for all of our employees. And the president of the company made the announcement to everybody that we're now doing the show on YouTube. And he called us our little celebrities or something like that. He might not have used little, but celebrity was definitely used. And that makes me uncomfortable, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. But you are. I mean, you guys are making an impact and you're doing it virtually, which is, it is amazing,
And I appreciate that. And I just hope really at the end of the day, when we make an episode, that if one person legitimately listens to it and either comes and calls Paul and asks them a question or ultimately calls Carboline and buys some paint, I feel like it's a win.
Absolutely.
And all we are doing is doing something that we did as our job. And we're putting it out in the public, because for 10 years when I was in tech service, my job was to take these really complex ideas and oversimplify them so that whoever I had on the phone could walk away gaining knowledge and have that extra tool in their toolbox for when they went to go do their job. So if I can do that at a broader scale, then I feel like we're successful. But like I said, at the end of the day, if one person is affected by an episode, I think it's a win.
And, that's really where all of this kind of came from, was the idea to present something that's digestible in small topics. You don't want to overwhelm anybody. You want to make it something that they can understand in a snippet and to be able to just consume it. And the idea was, when we first started, the first couple of episodes, we talked a lot about Carboline products, Carboline people, and we stayed kind of focused, and we realized that's not really where we need it to be. We want to be industry and global. And if you recognize the Carboline Tech Service Podcast as a couple of guys and their surroundings who have good contacts, good, solid information, are knowledgeable, and are not afraid to say, hey, I don't know that yet, let me look that up, we will become the go-to people for anybody who has a question. And as we got into doing, like we did the Tech Service Podcast live at the SSPC and NACE conventions. And honestly, it was a tremendous amount of work, made for really long days, exhausted at the end of it. But quite honestly, some of the most fascinating interviews I was ever part of. I enjoyed doing them. I enjoyed scouting for who we were going to talk to, because we would literally start each one of those shows of no idea who we were talking to. And we would walk around the show floor. And honestly, I mean, we're paint nerds, and, we're tech geeks, and those are things that interest us. So when we walked around the show floor and somebody had something neat, we're like, okay, so if that appeals to me, it'll probably appeal to at least one listener. Let's interview this person. And it really gave us an opportunity to open up the audience of who we talked to, contacts that we had, people that we could refer to. And I still, to this day, just last week, I sent a customer to somebody that we had interviewed in the first set of interviews that we did at the first live conference. We're 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago. And I gave out his contact information again, because that was the right person and the right topic. And I was like, here, no, you need to go talk to this person. So it's really been a great ability to be able to help bring other people together just because we're able to talk about things.
So let me add something here. Paul, you enjoyed the recordings at the SSPC and ACE conferences, but who got to do all the hundreds of hours of editing? Jack.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Did you enjoy that, Jack?
Not the editing part. The editing part's never fun, but it's amazing. You learn a lot about people's speech patterns. We all will stutter. Everybody, every single person on the face of the planet has some little microscopic stutter as they are trying to think about what they're going to say. And I say that as somebody who has edited 177 episodes of people talking. And then you really add the dynamic of when you go to YouTube and now you have it on video, and you can't really just take that out. And it's like, oh, we say that a lot.
I do that too. The nice thing about when you're recording video, you can stop and restart or go back. Or if you do editing a certain way, if you record it a certain way, you have little delays here and there where you can edit things and splice it together a little easier. Mm-hmm. If you're streaming live, or if you're doing a podcast, sometimes it's difficult because you're just recording the raw audio and everything flows at a certain pace. And yeah, you probably could say to your guests, let's go back and re-record this. But it's a different, each medium has a different way of really presenting itself when it comes to editing, and different challenges and things like that. Your video, you're dealing with lighting levels and all this other stuff.
I'll add to that. My boss and I do 8-minute, 8-slide webinars, and we keep it short, keep it valuable, all of that. And I am editing his, and we're live. Well, I did my first one last week, and we've done, a ton, 100. And I did my first one by myself last week because he needed to not be on. He was at a show, and I bombed. I said so many times. I mean, and plus I've been co-hosting with Jim and whatnot, and I was terrible. And you never realize doing a webinar, which is another format of what we're all talking about. You're not looking at anyone but yourself. So I could present in front of 50 people in person because you're able to see reactions and things like that. When you're doing a webinar, you're just staring at yourself. And at one point, and again, it's only 8 minutes, and then we do live questions, which is where we get the real good stuff thereafter. But I wanted to quit during. I'm like echoing, and it was hilarious. And I realized how hard I am on my boss, because we'll have a regroup after each webinar. And sometimes I'm like, you got to do this. You got to engage more. And then I did my first one and I was rushing through. It was hilarious. It was. So, I mean, you guys, we all know how hard it is. Other people sometimes know, they don't know, whatnot, but it is. You guys do a great job, and it's a hard tool, virtual and audio, because most of the time you can't go back except for when you're Jack, the king editor.
Let's not get that reputation. I'd like to have somebody else edit it at some point, if at all possible.
Right. That's going to be hard to pass on.
He threatens me all the time. He's like, okay, I've got that on audio and video now, so I will have that to use against you in the future.
He made the mistake of saying "oi" one time, so I took that AC/DC song, "oi, oi, oi," and I just did a Paul remix. It's great. I can't play it for anybody because AC/DC would want some money.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll have to save that for some, when you guys have your after party or something like that.
Yeah.
Play it then. So the other thing I wanted to really cover too is related to the podcast is on Monday morning when I listened to the podcast, you guys had an announcement regarding the frequency of the Carboline Tech Services Podcast and some potential future things that you're going to do. Are you able to share any details with us on that?
Sure. So the first detail is that, as Jim alluded to, we are actually going to reduce the number of episodes per month. This is a little bittersweet, but necessary. We have, my role has changed within the company. There are some other things that we can do in addition to what we're already doing. But what we found ourselves happening is we get in that same, it's a lot. Everybody says, every week, wow, you guys do it every week. Yeah, it's a lot. 177 straight weeks we produced content and put it out. And that's not going to stop. It's just we need to be able to do more. And I was finding it to where I wasn't able to do a whole heck of a lot more just because of the natural work schedule associated with the podcast. So it's really going to be an addition by subtraction. I think you'll see the YouTube, we just barely begun to scrape the surface. And so you'll see some things that might not necessarily have the Carboline Tech Service Podcast moniker on it, but know that if it's weird and techy, it came from me and Paul.
Yeah, and really that is, one of the things when Jack and I kind of threw this idea together, about 4 years ago, I guess, we had envisioned a lot of the things that we're finally starting to get to put together now. Mm-hmm. Different, instructional videos or tips and tricks and how-tos. And it was one of those things that when he worked for me, we were just getting ready to start implementing some of those things. And then he moved on to the current position he has in marketing, which he's hugely suited for. And actually it fits better into what it is that we're trying to do. But it's been a little bit of a learning curve to figure out what are those responsibilities going to be and where does time fall. And as more things have hit successfully, other people within the company and other ideas have popped in and they said, yep, we need to be able to dedicate more time to those. And so we're back to those ideas that we had. And we had, honestly, we joked about it. So when we numbered the first podcast, Jack wanted to it's episode 1. I was like, no, it needs to be 001. He's like, why? I said, because when you play them on these devices, sometimes they would play 10 and then 1 and then 11. And because it depends on whether the computer's reading left to right or right to left, does it identify that as a number? Is that part of a name? I said, and it drives me crazy when the player doesn't play things in sequence. I said, we need a 3-digit number. And he goes, you really think we're going to be doing this at episode 100? And I was like, well, I hope 100. I said, but honestly, we're set up to 1,000. I said, now, honestly, I hope I'm not here when 1,000 comes around because that's 20 years down the road. And that is not what. But that was the idea, that we knew other things were going to be happening. Other options and opportunities would open up. And I think we've hit that point of maturity and stability where we can make these changes to do these other adventures that we want to do that are still, like Jack said, techie, geeky, interesting, something eye-catching. We're still trying to do those things, and they take time to do. And in the roles that we have, we're still able to do them, but you just have to budget time a little different.
Yeah. The thing I'd throw out there, the pandemic really did change a lot. We were doing everything virtually, Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, all this virtual stuff, webinars, conferences, everything was going to virtual. The other thing I noticed that I had an uptick in viewership on the content I was putting out onto my YouTube channel. And so what I see a lot of changes that are coming down is for our industry, let's say in the coatings industry and also the corrosion industry, a lot of digital transformation that's coming and the need for content. You have a lot of different training and certification courses out there, but when you really look at what is available when it comes to content, media library type of content, that's where there's a lot of effort that needs to be really attention played to, and then also content needs to be created. So it sounds like you guys are going to be going down that path to work on that media type. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. COVID and this pandemic has really changed how we have to do things. And when you look out there at what is available content-wise within the industry, there's, you go and there's Jim Kunkel, and then there's not a whole lot else, and especially in video format. And if you go into any other part of your everyday life, that's how you find everything. You might want to do something around your house. It's like, well, hey, YouTube, how do I change this faucet? How do I do this? And it's just so natural into our own lives every day as it is. And then you throw in this fact that the world had the technology and had to get digital very, very, very fast. Yeah. And you start to realize some of the things that you haven't been doing because you hadn't figured them out, or it's there and it's not really that hard. And you just have to take the time, spend a little time on YouTube, and figure out what it is that you want to do and how to do it.
Well, I think I'm new to the industry, just a few years. So I've watched a lot of YouTube videos that are out there on coatings, on applications, things like that. And what I noticed then and now post or in pandemic is a lot of people, like I said at the beginning, didn't follow through. So they have these great ideas. They have a lot of knowledge. You can see it in their videos. I was a groupie of Jim's, like he is of you guys, where I stumbled through in those 2-minute videos. I think I ran into on Instagram. I watched because I learned from it. But there were a lot of valuable videos that I found on YouTube being new to the industry, but they just dropped off, or they weren't the same time every week, or, they were once a month or whenever they felt like it. It was a hobby to them, where you three certainly put in the time and work to be a valuable resource, whether, like you said earlier, sending someone to someone else or whatnot, but you really, truly are, all three of you, a resource. And I can say that being new to the industry and watching a lot of YouTube videos. So,
well,
thanks.
I appreciate that. The thing about content is if you don't have a consistency, it doesn't matter how much of it that you create. So, right now, currently we have the podcast that did come out every week, but now it's going to be twice a month. It's going to be the second and fourth week of the month. And that's on purpose.
Will it be any longer since you're doing it 2 times?
Probably not, because the length has always been centered around commutes and attention spans. So a lot of these topics that we're talking about are very, very dry. So it's hard to go very long, no matter how many dumb jokes I make throughout the process.
And he has a ton of them.
Tons of them. They don't stop. But we do a blog article that's once a month. It's the third Tuesday of the month, and it's by design. If it's not there at the exact same time, people don't know, and people, like you said, begin to rely on you for this information. And that's why, like, there's very few things that were true in life until this week about Mondays, but a new episode coming out every Monday was always one of the things that had to happen.
No, you're right about that. You have to follow those analytics. I do that consistently. The other thing, I do polls. The people who are subscribed to my channel, what is of interest to you? What are you looking for? So you have to really pay mindful attention to all that, because you don't want to just put content out there, to your point, being dry topics, unless you're talking about wet film thickness or something like that. So you have to be careful.
We are.
Little rim shot there. You have to be careful. So, now that you guys are really, looking to branch into other avenues of technical content, are you looking to incorporate that into, other elements of Carboline when it comes to, not only covering technical service topics, but is there any other topics that you'd be covering?
There are, but that's probably a little bit where I ditch Paul when I get outside the super technical stuff. At the same time, though, we have a coating that is a heat resistant coating that Paul and I did some really fun stuff with that should be that video sometime this summer, you'll see Paul and I do one of those "don't try this at home" things. So, there's definitely some aspects that we can go that are outside of the technical, but it'll all be very technical based, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's who we are as Carboline. We firmly believe that we can find you a solution for your problem, that we will use our expertise, whether it's recommending our products, which obviously we prefer, but sometimes the best answer is a no if it's going to go badly. So we're not necessarily afraid to go that route too. And like Paul said, hook you up with somebody who may be a better solution for your problem. Ultimately, we're going to try to keep you with Carboline. I mean, that doesn't really have to be said, but at the end of the day, we want our customers, when they have a reaction with us, for it to be a pleasant one, for us to maybe teach them something they didn't know, or help them figure out something that, whether it's a specification, whether it's a problem they're having with application, whether it's there's a full gamut of things that go on. And we just want to make sure that we're doing a good job oversimplifying that and giving them the tools and ammunition they need in order to go out and be successful. Because if they're successful, we're successful, rinse, repeat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a good example of that is with the upcoming January 1st, 2023 NSF 600. You guys had really focused some episodes on that, so that those people in the water wastewater industry, the water treatment industry, they would know this is what's coming for you with a health regulation and things like that. So you guys are definitely keeping the relevant topics and things like that. So let's move over to the conversation about people in our industry. Let's say corrosion and coatings industry. Being making content, but being the influencers. What advice do you have for those who are listening now, who might watch this in the rebroadcast, the video? What advice would you have if they were looking to do what you do, or become, like I say, work on becoming an influencer like Jack and Paul?
And so in an industry like this, I think the thing that I've brought to it most often is to be honest, being honest to myself and who I am, and to be honest in what we present. And you don't want anybody to be able to go back at some point and say, you just told me that because that's a product you were told you had to tell us about. I'm only going to tell you things that I believe in, and I'm only going to tell you what I believe to be true and accurate when I say it. Mm-hmm. And it has to be something that you're genuinely interested in. Otherwise, that is an impossible task. If you're not interested in it, and as sad as it is to say, I'm interested in paint. I've been in it for 25 years. I've been in the coatings industry in some way, shape, or form. Starting as a formulator, sales, management. I've been all over the place. It is something that I'm interested in. I get made fun of when my kids walk through the family room and they see me watching YouTube videos of people applying paint. Yeah. And they're like, really, Dad? That's what you're doing in your free time? But if you're not interested in it, you're not going to be interesting to anybody else. And dumb jokes only work when you think about things fondly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say your interest level has got to be huge, but I would definitely say figure out who your target audience is. Who do you want to speak to specifically, and how can you best reach them? And then what's natural to you? Like, we started with the audio podcast because obviously I like to talk and I know how to record it from my band days back in the past. So it was a really natural progression to go there. But like Paul said, if you don't love it, it will be tedious. 177 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
It gets quick, and it happens quick because it feels like it was yesterday when we did episode 1. And here we are 3-4 years later. And so consistency and enthusiasm would be two major qualities if you're going to go that route.
Definitely passion. I've had people ask me, why do you do what you do when it comes to the content? Again, I love the industry I work in. And I like to talk to people. I like to get this information out there, but you have to have passion for it. So I always tell people, if you're looking to do this, don't do it if you don't have the drive or the passion, because it is a commitment. There's no doubt about it. Because not only do I have to work a full-time job, but I also have to balance family life and put content in. So there's times where I'm up late at night or up early in the morning doing editing or putting stuff together. So you really have to be passionate about it.
For sure. And we're also very lucky because besides Paul and I being passionate about it, Carboline has been passionate about us. And we've really had a good support system to kind of explore and do the things that we want to do and need to do to make the show the best that it can be.
You know, when we started, we really kind of jumped out on a ledge. Jack and I jumped both feet, said, we don't know what anybody's going to say or do about this. We don't know how they're going to think about it. And we were both in tech service. So we had no marketing influence at all. The marketing group was different. And we just saw this as something that in the industry, there was nobody talking technical to a mass area. And so we did the recording and took it to my boss and said, hey, here's our idea. And he just looked, he was like, I love this. This is awesome. And he took it immediately to the executive team, who all saw the same thing. So it was truly, we had corporate support from the very beginning. Nobody, I think, it would have been a long time for them anybody else to think of it. But as soon as they saw it, the immediate reaction was, yes, that's it. That's what we need. And from every level, all the way up to the president of the company, has been thrilled and supportive all the way through it. And a lot of them we've had on as guests, and they've really enjoyed it and showed their support. I mean, honestly, inside Carboline, Jack and I were the inaugural winners of a new award for doing something like this inside the company, of going outside your area to do something that's still within your area, but outside your job responsibility, to go above and beyond, to create something new, to
take initiative.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, we're pretty proud of that fact that we got to be the inaugural winners of the new award, and they give one out periodically. Doesn't happen all the time, you know, and it really takes there's a milestone that they have to get above, and the executive team gets to evaluate everybody, but they've been hugely supportive on our ability to be able to do this, to the point where we have more things they want us to keep doing, which is why we've had to make a change in the release schedule.
That's awesome. And support is so important to creativity.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Definitely.
As technical, you know, as we all want to label this, that's utmost importance. It still takes a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, Jack, I really appreciate this opportunity. Hiedi, any closing thoughts?
Nope. Just one more time. You all three are so amazing.
Oh, thank you.
We haven't heard it enough. One more time from me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on the stream. For everyone watching and also watching in rebroadcast on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will have an interview live stream with the AMP Conferences and Events team. We're going to talk about Corrosion Virtual 2021. So make sure you join us 3 p.m. Eastern this Thursday. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much.
See you, Jim.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi.